Why are so many people migrating to RedNote, Xiaohongshu, and what started this migration?
The internet and culture newsletter Garbage Day probably has the best explanation. Essentially, savvy American content creators, especially women of color, already knew about Xiaohongshu for a while and have been there. If you're not familiar with American history, it's important to note that people of color, especially black women, have been on the forefront of culture, innovation, and creativity throughout the history of the country, and often have gotten no credit for it. So there was already a critical mass of people on Xiaohongshu. As the TikTok ban has approached in America, that critical mass became a tidal wave, and you can pause to read some of this that explains some of the deep irony of that. TikTok's algorithm has always operated more like an app like Xiaohongshu's algorithm, in that it hyper-targets your interests and connects you with people who share those interests. You can pause to read the rest of this essay. But what this article doesn't say is that Americans have always been starved for community. In fact, American society is set up in a way to basically cut people off from each other. So TikTok's algorithm inadvertently connected people in ways that they were sorely missing. For TikTok users, Xiaohongshu feels more like home than any American social media app. And we would rather maintain connection and build new connections there than go back to these other platforms.
But the most amazing part of all of this is the sudden cultural exchange that has exploded out of this mass migration. This is deeply funny given how much the American government's fear of China has now backfired as people are sharing their real life experiences and realizing we all have so much more in common. Of course, Xiaohongshu is not TikTok, and those of us who stick around and post content there will need to do so much more thoughtfully and respectfully, at least to start. But this is a moment that we need to take advantage of for the incredible cultural exchange it represents and kind of mass awakening of people to how similar we all are. It almost feels like, for those of us who had no idea that this app even existed or we could even access it, it almost feels like we are having a dream where someone opens up a room in our house that we never knew existed. In fact, it's not even just a room, it's probably half of the entire house. And it's beautiful, and there's so much to explore and discover.